Hola, mi gente. Welcome back to Cat and Too Many Books. I'm Kat, and I'm so happy that you are here. We are going to be talking about the books that I've read in May and June. So this is my reading wrap up. So let me just talk about, I haven't read a lot in the last couple of months. I read about 7 books between May and June, which isn't terrible, but it's, not as much as I wanted to read. I'm hoping that in July, now that I am fully out of school, not working, not having to do anything, have had my decompression time, I might be able to get back into reading a little bit more and have a few more books in July, but I'm making no promises because God knows how my reading brain works. I don't know. So anyway, let's talk about my stats first for the last 2 months. So in May, I read 2 books only. They were pages read was 1,158 pages. I read 100% fiction, 50% of it was audio, and 50% was in print. My average rating was 3.75 stars. And I think I read all books that I read were between 300 and 499 pages. So in June, I actually read 5 books, but I only read 995 pages because the books were pretty short. My average rating was 4.1. I read 40% books under 300 pages, and I read 60% between 300 and 499. And all the books I read were 100% fiction and 100% print. So yeah, let me just kind of talk about these books. Some really interesting reads in the last 2 months. Let's talk about May. So May, I started with Flirting Lessons by Jasmine Guillory. I gave that 4 stars. I really loved this particular romance. It was wonderful. It's a sapphic romance with 2 wonderful women. I adored the characters. I loved their romance. It was a kind of like a fake dating, sort of helping someone figure out how to flirt because, she doesn't know how to flirt with women. So this notorious flirt kind of says, hey, let me help you. Let's go out on these adventures and I'll help you kind of figure it out. And then they fall in love. And it's lovely. And I loved it so much. I highly recommend this romance. It was cute. It was sweet. It was sexy. It was very nice. So yeah, and it kind of made me want to look at Guillory's a few more of her romances. I know this is the first queer romance she's ever written. Yay for being a sapphic romance. We need more of those. But I think I might give her straight romances a try just because I really enjoyed her writing and her characterization. But I am hoping that she writes some more queer romances. The next one that I actually had, which was the second book that I read this in May, was Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. And I actually gave that 3.5 stars. Now, Sky Daddy is not for everybody. I didn't love it, but I appreciate what the book did. And I think that Kate Folk has a really great storytelling vibe. I don't know if I related to the main character as much as I could have. So the main character, and if you know, I know that if you've heard about Sky Daddy, you know what I'm talking about. So basically, the main character has this thing with planes where she's sexually aroused by planes, basically all kinds of planes, and she frequently takes trips on planes where she pleasures herself on the plane. And she can only really be aroused in that form. She's not really in any other place or any other way ever aroused. It stems from trauma that she sort of had when she was younger. And so that's sort of the, I guess the bigger picture of the book. The smaller one, when you look at it more deeply, it is about grief and it is about trauma. It is about not understanding yourself or knowing who you are, not being able to connect with people, which might put the main character on some sort of spectrum, which I think she is. And it's also about this idea that you don't belong in this place, so you want to go away, because the main goal the main character has is to marry a plane, meaning she wants to basically die in a plane crash. It's very conflicting, the book, because you're it's very conflicting, but it's well done. It's well written. Kate Folk has a really great style of writing, that you feel for that main character and you don't quite relate to her, but you feel for her. So yeah, I don't think it's for everybody, but if you think you want to give it a try, I think you should. Definitely. So those were my books for May. In June, I read 5 books. And though I read 5 books, and a lot of them were pretty short, like smaller books, because I was feeling a little bit slumpy, and I figured I should read shorter books so that I could actually, feel accomplished. So I started reading this month with The Keeper of Lonely Spirits by E.M. Anderson. I gave this book 5 stars. I loved this book. This book is about Peter, who is an immortal. He was cursed by Fae when he was quite young. I think he was 14 or 15 when it happened. And he was cursed for them to never die, to never be able to see his family again, and to never be able to come to his land again. That he wouldn't be welcome. So he's from Ireland. And it all connected to like a solstice thing that he forgot to do something. It's explained in the book, but so he's wandered the world for the last, I think, about 200 years. I think it was like the 1800s. I feel that happened to him. And so it's connected to, so he's been alive for about 200 years. He stopped aging at about 70, I feel like. So he's like, he's an Sagittarian. He's an older gentleman. And so he's spent the last quite a few decades, maybe 100 years, keeping himself away from like people in the terms of not connecting with them on purpose, because he was in love. He had I think his husband's name or his boyfriend's name or his partner's name was Jack, and he just couldn't take the loss of Jack, and it sort of made him decide that he just kept seeing, and it wasn't just that, he made friends, and it was just watching people die, and he wasn't going to, and just having to deal with that kind of grief everlasting. He just made a decision that he was just never going to really connect with people. But part of the job that he does is that he goes to different cities where he hears about ghosts, because that was one of the things that happened with the curse. He can now see ghosts. And so like he goes to places where there are ghosts that are haunting areas or houses or cemeteries or whatever, and he goes to try to figure out what the ghost needs so that he can get them to move on, right, and to stop haunting the place. So he kind of does things like that, and then he'll follow like rumors or where people talk about ghosts somewhere else. He'll go follow those so that he can like help out. So he ends up going to Ohio. I think Ohio is where he ends up going, and he becomes sort of like the caretaker of a cemetery, and he meets a lot of ghosts in that cemetery, and he sort of starts connecting with the daughter of the man that used to run the cemetery, who'd passed away, whose spirit is obviously around. He connects with these 2 young kids, whose parents are going through a lot of like problems with like their family, and they're trying really hard with the kids. They're good parents, but lots going on. These kids are like in the midst of grieving and not understanding. And then he connects with a gentleman who works at the local museum, / library, I think it is, who he finds himself very, very attracted to and very sort of connecting with him, as his person, he just lost his husband. So they start connecting, and so he just he's very stubbornly against connecting with all these people, even though he is absolutely falling in love with these people and this place. And there's like a big culmination in it. There's like some surprises, some twists, and it's just so wonderfully done. And I loved Peter's voice, and it's so good. So I highly recommend this book. I really do. I've been drawn to books about grief a lot in the last couple of years, and this book does it so beautifully and just lovingly. But it's also about finding family and finding love again and opening yourself up to loving, because just not loving someone doesn't stop the grief from coming, and it's not a way to live, especially if you're going to be living forever, probably. So yeah, it was really good. I highly recommend it. The next book I have is Murder by Memory by Olivia Waite. I gave that 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It's less than 100 pages. I read it pretty quickly. And it is the story of, the premise is of a woman who wakes up in a body that's not hers. So then you find out that this is way into the future, and like humanity is basically in this huge ship that is now like a huge planet basically, and they're heading to an actual planet, but it's going to take a long time to get there. And they figured out how to upload your memories and your personalities up into like a hard drive or like a memory bank, and then when your body fails you or you die for whatever reason or you're murdered, your memories can be put in a new body that they make for you, that they grow for you, I believe. And so the main character has been in the memory bank for a couple of years. You learn that her wife had basically begun to have memory problems. So like her wife developed some form of dementia, and so couldn't remember and stuff, and it just caused a lot of pain. So she decided to sort of let her wife go and not have her remember her, which is super sad. But she couldn't handle it, so she went up into the memory bank for a couple of years, but she needed to come out. The system like put her into the body of somebody because somebody's been murdered, and they're going to need her specific skills as a detective to figure out who murdered the person and what happened. That's the basic premise of it. I mean, it's I don't know, 80 pages long, something like that, 90 pages long. It was so good. It was really good. I gave it 3.5, but only because I wanted it to be longer, and I don't think I had enough. There wasn't time to develop stuff. But I also know that it's a series, so I feel like if I reread it, I'll probably give it a higher rating. And then like as the series moves on, I'll feel like maybe I'll feel more connected to it in some way. But it was really a very good sort of short novella sort of story. I wanted more. I think there was so much more to explore. I kind of wish it was a bit longer, but there's more to the series, so I'm going to definitely pick up the next book. Excuse me. Next book I finished in June was Rama One Half by Rumiko Takahashi, which is a manga that I read. Now, I loved Rama when I was much younger. It was actually an 80s sort of manga and 80s like series that I watched when I was in the 90s when I was a teenager. And so I decided to kind of pick it up and read the manga for the first two, because they've redone the series and put it on Netflix, I believe. So I wanted to sort of rewatch the new series, and so I decided to pick up the first two volumes, volume 1 and 2. It was like a super pack, basically. And it was fun. It is about a boy named Rama whose father's terrible. He's a really great martial artist, and he and his dad go to China, and they go to this place with cursed lakes, and his dad just literally shoves him into a cursed lake, which was I think it's the cursed lake of the drowned girl, which basically just turns him into a girl. So like when he gets wet, cold, he becomes female, like he becomes a girl, becomes female Rama. And then you have to put hot water on him, and he turns back into his male form. And he's been betrothed to Akane, whose dad and her dad and Rama's dad are best friends, and they like betrothed the two of them. Well, betrothed him to one of the girls when they were babies or whatever. And so yeah, it's just like, it's hilarious. It's really funny. It's like trials and tribulations of like what happens to him all the time. You get a whole bunch of really fun characters. It's absolutely wacky. Absolutely. And I love it. Love it so much. I think I gave it 4 stars, right? Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. So yeah, if you want to get into a really fun manga, please do. I absolutely also recommend watching the original series, the movies, and I watched the first episode of the reboot or whatever it is, and it was really good. So highly recommend it. The next one I have is so I read Carmilla by J. Sheridan Le Fanu, because I am going to be reading Hungerstone at some point, and I wanted to read the original source material. I think I'm going to read that in October, and I kind of wanted to read the original source first before I read, Hungerstone. And it's Hungerstone, right? Yeah. And so I picked up Carmilla. It was also quite short. It was a little over 100 pages. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. Like, I know that it is what Dracula was based off of, and for being the source, it's great. And I love that it's sapphic. That's my favorite thing about it, right? It is a whole sapphic sort of story about Carmilla, who becomes obsessed with these young girls and really kind of brings them into her fold and does all the stuff that vampires do. It was a little. I'm someone who, I like classics. I do read classics and read many classics, and I enjoy them. The language was a little hard to really get into, and the writing style was okay. And I think for what it was and what it represents, it's great. I think you should probably pick it up. It's a classic. And if you're a horror person, like if you like horror, that's a great classic to read because it's what Dracula is based off of. So it's a really good thing to sort of have. And I really wanted to have the foundation of what Carmilla was like before I started to read something that was based off of it. So for that, it was good. I didn't love it. I think the writing style was well done, and it's definitely, but it reads like a classic, right? Like it reads like what it is. And not all classics read like that. There are some classics that you can read and don't feel like you're reading a classic. So I think that was really the most reason that I give it a 3.0. I didn't love it. I thought it was fine. And then lastly, I just literally finished reading this one because there's a live discussion for it tonight on Books and Jams channel. I read An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir, which is my favorite book of the month. I gave this 5 stars. I love this book so much. I didn't know whether I was going to like it or not. But oh my God, like the writing is phenomenal. It really is. Like, it's a young adult. So, I'm out of young adult demographic, but not to say that there aren't great young adult novels. I just don't veer toward them much anymore. But this was amazing. I really, really loved the characters. The characters were all just so, I like the writing to be complicated about characters, and even the people that were terrible, you understood them. And the world building is so well done because I'm only looking at a part of it, but I can tell that it's such a wider space that it's going to talk about as the series moves on. Leia, I loved her because her arc was really good. She feels like she's not brave enough, even though you're like basically going to, girl, I would be doing what you're doing because honestly, not many of us would do anything else. But like watching her sort of, it's hard. There are some trigger warnings I want to say in terms of like a lot of the physical sort of torture that she goes through and the other characters go through is hard to read. But it was so well done. And then Elias, which is the other character, who is right. Okay, so let me back up. Leia is a scholar, which is a group of people who are like basically been under the tyranny of the masks and the emperor for many, many years. I think they're called the Marshall people. And so she's lost a lot of family, and she is desperate to get her brother back, who's been taken by the masks and the empire to be tortured somewhere. So she decides to join the rebels, and they give her an assignment to go work at the school where they train the masks, right? Which is what she does. And then at the school is Elias, who is the son of the head of the school, and that's not great. His mother's not the best person at all. But he's very different. He does not feel the same way. He's got a lot of compassion in him, a lot of kindness in him, and that doesn't always bode well. And it's just like he has to go through some trials, and there's just like a whole thing. I don't want to give it away if you haven't read this, but if you haven't read this, please read it. It is so, so good. I'm really so happy that Krista chose to do a reread of this. She's going to be reading the whole series in the next few months. So I will be picking up the second one of these for July, I believe. And I'm very excited to do that because I love this so much. I don't even know how to say it. The writing was beautifully done. I felt for all of the characters. There was this last sort of quote that Elias says to his mother that really got me like right here. The growth for all the characters, what they go through, where they are left, and what that means, and how excited I am to see where all of the characters go, to be perfectly frank. It's hard to write where I care about all the characters or I understand even the villains of your story and why they are the way they are. And I have suspicions about the commander, which is his mother. Like, I have suspicions about why she is the way she is that I'm sure I'll find out eventually. But it was so good. 5 stars. This is my favorite book of the month. This is going to be in my favorite books of the year, I think. So yeah, I'm very excited to continue on with, I think, is it called A Torch in the Night? Yep. Wait. No, A Torch Against the Night. A Torch Against the Night is the next one. So I'm excited to get to it. So yes, 5 stars. Loved it. Hope you read it. Join the thing with Books and Jams. Like, if you've read this already and want to catch up or read the next one, please do. She has some fun, like, she did some really fun reading sprints, and like there's going to be a live discussion at the end of reading each of the books, and I'm very excited to do that. It's actually tonight, so I'm going to get to that. But anyways, okay, so were the books that I read in the last 2 months. I will be hopefully having my reading. I'm planning to film and hopefully have my reading TBR for July soon. Probably the next couple of days. But anyways, all right. So if you're still here, thank you so much. Please put a little bit of, put something at the bottom. You can comment, tell me if you've read any of the books, if you love any of these books. Do you have any suggestions of books that are similar to these books? I would love to see it. Like, subscribe, because it helps my channel. If you don't want, you can leave me just a little book or something, or a little heart or whatever in the comments. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye.